Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It is Wednesday, it's January 11th. It is 2023. We have 8 NBA games to talk about here on today's podcast. Joined today by my good buddy, Will Priester, ChiefJustice06. Chief, I messed up the background. I messed up the intro. I messed up the title of the podcast, but I'm here. I didn't play 3 minutes and call myself out for illness, so I'm still doing better than Jared Allen. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Pleasure to be here. Always a good time, and I think we'll have some fun on this one, man. Pretty excited to hop in here and do our thing for the people, and hopefully this all comes together really well, and we can just continue to crush this thing.
8 games ready to move past Tuesday's slate. I mean, it was looking so good for me. I was telling Will I had 2 potential 5 for 5s and a 4 for 4 because Stewart got a DNP on Prize Picks that just needed Allen to hit his over. I think it's 22.5 points and rebounds, and he played like 4 or 5 minutes and then called it a night and said that he had the stomach. So, man, it's still gonna be a good night, like double up wise, but it was looking like it was going to be like one of those like banger nights that you get every once in a while, and it's like, it's really nice and you move on, and 20x days don't come around very often, and when they don't happen you're like, dang, kind of thing. So hope everyone is doing well, and let's get into it. Will, we got 8 games. We get started here with Chicago at Washington. This game it looks like it has a 229 total on most books, and the Bulls are a 1-point favorite on most books here. On the Chicago side of things, Ball is out and Bradley is out. DeMar DeRozan is questionable. Javonte Green is out. On the Washington side, Bradley Beal remains out. Gafford, Kaspert, and Porzingis are questionable. So, I mean, that's definitely news that we're going to be paying attention here. We'll go to Chicago first. If DeRozan doesn't play at 9K, Zach LaVine, 8K against this Washington defense. It's hard not to have a ton of interest in LaVine if DeRozan doesn't play in this one.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, if DeRozan sits, this has got to be the LaVine coming out party. The thing is, though, look at what the Bulls, or DraftKings has done. Like, they've already priced up LaVine. He's sitting at 8K, so we don't have that. And Steve, I think you know this because we've kind of talked about it. As long as LaVine's in that low 7K range, you just kind of take a shot on him in tournaments pretty frequently. In this particular case, I think we're seeing that he's not there because they've already priced him up. Now, same thing on FanDuel as well, Steve. I did want to check that one today. He's 8,500 on FanDuel. Like we're not getting the LaVine somewhat discount, so I'm not as interested as I would be usually. But I still think on DraftKings at 8K, he's a really good play. I think he's a really good play and not a smash. If he was 7,100 again, 7,200, I think he'd be a smash play. I'd probably prefer to play Vooch at 8,100. I think he might actually end up being a better play. And then Kobe White at 3,300 might be one of the best plays of all by the time this thing all comes together, especially if he's probably projected for, let's say, 25 to 30 minutes. Maybe he's projected for 27 minutes or so. He might end up being the target for the Chicago Bulls.
Take him DeRozan and Green off the floor. LaVine, 286 minutes, 31.7% usage, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. That's a 3.7% increase in usage and 0.12 fantasy points per minute, which per 36 comes out to 4.26, 4.28. So super solid for LaVine. So, I mean, him and Vooch, I mean, they're the two plays. Vooch is averaging 1.41 fantasy points per minute in 138 minutes with no DeRozan. So Vooch is in a great spot. I mean, potentially no Porzingis and no Gafford. Like if that happens, just Hachimura. I'm sorry, you're not stopping like Taj Gibson and Hachimura not stopping Vooch. Like they just need to feed him the ball in this game. Patrick Williams is cheap. I like the White call. I mean, this is all if DeRozan doesn't play. Patrick Williams, he's going to play a bunch of minutes regardless. Just might see maybe a few extra shot attempts. So definitely don't hate that. Going to the Washington side, I mean, all of this news kind of revolves around Gafford and Porzingis. If these two guys are out, Kyle Kuzma is 8,500, and it might not be high enough. He's someone that if we get news that Porzingis and Gafford are going to sit, I think you have to look at Hachimura. I think you have to look at Kuzma. Depending on like Casper plays or not, gosh, this team is going to be very, very shorthanded today.
Yeah. So I was talking about Levine. You've mentioned Kyle Kuzma at 8,500. Relatively close in price. He's someone that, unlike Levine, who will still have some help. I mean, don't you feel like Kyle Kuzma is just going to run away with this thing, with this team, Stevie? Like, feels like he's going to take 20-plus shots, be involved in almost every play in some capacity, assist, rebound, scoring a bucket, steal, even the turnovers. He will turn it over as well. I definitely think this would be, a prime time spot for Kyle Kuzma. Now, someone else that I think could creep into the conversation here, with all these guys kind of sitting, and it's not that he's going to score 20, 30 points, but it's really more about what I think his role could be. Like, do you think Denny ends up getting back up to 30 minutes in this game? If all these guys sit like at 4,200, if he gets 30, I'm pretty intrigued. I know they've got guys back, Barton and what's his face, Goodwin Goodwin. DeLon Wright's back. Rui's playing more. I get that, but do you think Denny plays 30 minutes here if all these guys are out?
I think if Gafford and Porzingis sit and Kaspert sits, like if all three of these guys are questionable, I mean, I have a hard time not seeing him play 30 minutes in this game.
At that point, I think you have to play him. Like he's super playable, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. So much potential value on both sides of this game, depending on the news. Like if we do get like DeRozan out, we get Porzingis out. It just changes the whole game, offensively and defensively. So definitely going to be paying attention to the news in this game. Minnesota at Detroit, taking on the Pistons. We got a 232.5 total here. Minnesota is a 5.5 point favorite. Detroit, second end of a back-to-back. We'll be waiting on we'll be waiting on an injury report for them. Probably get it 1:30 to 2:30 Eastern time tomorrow. On the Minnesota side, I mean, one of the biggest things here on the slate is Anthony Edwards is questionable. McLaughlin remains out. Karl-Anthony Towns remains out. Let's go Minnesota first. What do you like here for the Timberwolves?
Man, facing Detroit, I think I have to be interested in Rudy Gobert, who, Detroit's kind of down some guys at 7,100. He hasn't been fantastic every single game, but he's going through these stretches. When I'm seeing the minutes at mid-30s, upper 30s, I think I have to consider it at 7,100, Steve. He feels like a good play to me. Same thing for D'Angelo Russell at 7,400. He's got 40-plus point upside, so I think he's someone you can invest in. Anthony Edwards is questionable. I think he was questionable his last start as well. At 9,100, I think you can still roll the dice, but I am more interested in Gobert and D'Lo than I am Edwards. And that's purely the questionable tag. It's got nothing to do with his upside against the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, if Edwards sits, ton of interest in Gobert and Russell. Maybe like if Edwards sits, I think you're potentially looking at like a Jalen Noel at 4,700. So, I mean, if Edwards plays, Minnesota should crush in this matchup. I don't know if I get to Edwards at 9,100. I do like his point prop if he plays in this game, and they say he's good to go. But yeah, I mean, I think that for the most part, I'll be looking at Russell and Gobert in either scenario. I think Gobert is in play, but for Russell, I really want Edwards to sit. And then, like I said, if Edwards does sit, McDaniels, Noel, just kind of cheap options. I don't think I get to Austin Rivers today. The Detroit side, again, second end of a back-to-back, Bogdanovich sat yesterday. Isaiah Stewart, like, out, like, out of nowhere.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, left soreness, like shoulder soreness or something. So, I mean, that was kind of big. Duran was out on Tuesday. I think it's like an ankle. I mean,
Bagley was out too. Like, man.
Yeah, it's really hard on like the night before podcast to be like, hey, let's see like what we're doing with Detroit. They got crushed by Philadelphia. Diallo had a really solid game, but I mean, a lot of the Detroit value kind of dudded. Nerlens Noel played 21 minutes. So yeah, we got to see who's in and who's out on Detroit. What are your like first impression thoughts here, Will? Too tough to say, or is there? I mean, do you think it's still going to be so spread out that you have a tough time playing them?
I mean, I don't ever mind like the guys that are going to play. Like Killian Hayes is going to play minutes, right? So at 5,800, a guy that's got 40-point upside, like I don't mind. Sign me up. Jaden Ivey, he's 5,300 in this spot. We know that he's going to play anywhere from upper 20s to 30 minutes, right? And maybe he's got some upside, if Bogdanovich were to sit again. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. My assumption is he's going to play today. Like, I think it was just maintenance with him being slightly a veteran. That's kind of my read. Sadiq Bey, his role is all over the place now. I think no matter what, Stevie, no matter what the outcome is, I think you can play Hayes and Ivy if you need exposure to this game. And I think that's the approach I take. And if the big men come back, they come back.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, yeah, I really like Bogdanovich if he plays. I think they might have just sat him first end, played him second end, put up 45 fantasy points against Minnesota earlier this season. So, like that call. New Orleans at Boston, taking on the Celtics. 229 total here. Celtics a 9.5 point favorite. On the Boston side, Gallinari remains out. Smart and Williams are both questionable. Robert Williams. And then on the Pelicans, Ingram is out. Herb Jones is doubtful. And Zion is out. Let's go New Orleans first. Think that Herb Jones news actually matters quite a bit. He's been someone that's been in that like 30-minute mark here recently, especially with Zion out.
And
I think this is I think this is just kind of a spot where, is it Alvarado? Is it Larry Nance getting extra minutes in this game? Like, someone's getting extra minutes.
I gotta think it's Hayes or Nance, right? Like, because they're going to play CJ. I mean, I guess they could get away with Alvarado, CJ, Trey Murphy, Najee, and JV. But I gotta think they're going to want more defense than that against Boston. Don't you think, Stevie? Like, I feel like Nance or Hayes would maybe get the start. Probably more so Lance if Herb is out. Like, that seems like the right call. And I mean, we could probably hop in Court IQ and just kind of look at game flow in some of the games, but I don't think they've had enough consistency in their lineups for it to make sense anyway, because Zion's been out and Nance has been out. They've all been out at some point. So If I had to take my best educated guess, Larry Nance starts for Herb, but once again, they could easily just plug in Alvarado and slide everybody back and still bring Nance off the bench. So I would let me say this, and I know I'm not trying to be spacey about it. I would hope they would start Nance and then rotate in Hayes for JV. That seems like a more optimal coaching decision if I'm thinking about it from a basketball perspective. So I'm going to side with Nance. And if he plays at 4,400, I think you consider him. That's a good spot for him if he's going to get anything close to 30 minutes. He could put up a 30 fantasy point game easily here, I think. Even though it's against Boston, he's shown that he's a guy who can put up the fantasy points.
So for what it's worth, Herb Jones got hurt in the second quarter the other night. And I mean, the second half. So Nance checked in for him when he got hurt, but the second half they ended up starting Dyson Daniels in that second half, and he played the whole third quarter. Larry Nance checked in for Najee Marshall. It's just, these rotations are so hard to predict. Out of nowhere, Dyson Daniels got the whole third quarter. He ended up playing like almost all of his minutes in the second half. Like 15 of his 19 minutes were in the second half of that game. So he's 3,100. If he gets announced as the starter here, he's not coming out if this game gets out of hand. So you're going to get 20, 25 minutes from him. So just kind of looking through the game flow of that Washington game where, New Orleans kind of handled that game, and he didn't play the fourth quarter, but he crushed in the third quarter. So it's kind of tough. He finished out in garbage time, but pay attention to that starting lineup for New Orleans, because I think he does get the garbage time if this game's a blowout either way, which I think it'd be the blowout Boston way. But let's talk Celtics here. Marcus Smart potentially out. I think that if he does end up sitting in this game, I think we all want to play Brogdon. I think we're all kind of like, what happened the other night against Chicago? I think minutes-wise, Derek White's the safer play, but I think Brogdon has the higher ceiling. What are your thoughts here with Boston?
Yeah, man. So obviously we think Brogdon has the highest ceiling out of this group at 5,600. I think that's enough of a gap. Or close enough of a gap for me to absolutely side with Brogdon. I still don't want to write White off if he's going to get 30 minutes. Like, we've seen him pop in some games. I think I'd mix him in my tournament builds, especially if Brogdon starts to soak up virtually all of the ownership. Like, I think at that point, you legitimately need to be getting probably more Derek White. All in all, though, I think if this game is going to be competitive and New Orleans essentially pushes Boston, man, it's Jason Tatum. Even on this slate, Jason Tatum just continues to thrive. So that's kind of the direction I'd be heading. I'd be leveraging more Tatum, I think, than Brogdon.
Yeah. It's a tough game for me to kind of predict here, but if Robert Williams sits, Grant Williams is 4K. He's going to play a lot of minutes in this game. I like that. If Smart sits, I don't know if I get to Tatum or Brown or Brogdon or White. It's just pricing on these guys. If you don't get that fourth quarter or most of the fourth quarter, it's tough. I think I want to play Tatum if I'm playing anybody, but I could see this team is so bad, just stopping guards. I could see Brown having a really strong game here too. So, just going to any of these guys, I think is okay for tournaments anyway. We got the Pacers and the Knicks, 230 total in this game, and the Knicks are a 4.5-point favorites. On the Knicks side, Barrett is questionable. Nice little upgrade for him. And then on the Pacers side, McConnell, Neesmith are questionable. So Daniel Tice remains out. We'll go Pacers first. Will, what do you like here for Indiana?
Man, look, this is what I think is a very interesting game because while the Knicks have been playing fairly good, Stevie, I think RJ being out and I think it's kind of just screwed up somehow they want to run their rotation. So they've been forced to start quickly. And some of these guys, the Knicks have been suspect at point guard for the past few seasons anyway. In comes Tyrese Halliburton at 9,200. I'm all aboard the Halliburton train today, Steve. He's a little I don't think he's expensive. I think he's properly priced. But I think as a result of them playing the Knicks and thinking about Thibodeau, I don't think people go there today. I think they lean more into playing Knicks than Pacers. And I think Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best plays on the board.
The Halliburton-Randall stack.
Yes.
It seems really juicy for tournaments. I could see it being like a really high upside like tournament stack. Yeah, I mean, I want to see like if like Neesmith plays. If Neesmith sits, do we think it's like Nembhard's already playing a ton of minutes? Do we think it's like Jalen Smith potentially getting some extra minutes or Brissett potentially getting some extra minutes? Like if Neesmith sits, who do you think is going to get like the extra minutes in this game?
I mean, do you think Benedict gets like 28 minutes and then maybe they spread it like around in this weird way? Like maybe they all pick up a few, like this kind of wing rotation, Stevie. Maybe they all pick up a few extra ones. That feels like that's probably what it could be. Like Duarte maybe pick up an extra. Maybe he plays 12 to 15 minutes. Maybe Benedict plays 26 to 30 minutes, which is about what he's playing anyway. But you get what I'm saying? Like he's been more mid-30s. Maybe he gets closer to 30. Nembhard's already been playing minutes. I'm not sure how many more he would get, but maybe this wing rotation all just kind of picks up 2 to 3 extra minutes to fill the void in the rotation.
Knicks side, I mean, I already kind of said it. Julius Randle is he's been playing so phenomenal here recently. He is like a staple on like sleeper and prize picks for me, like point rebound props. Just like over the last like week and a half, just almost every day that he plays. So I'm going back to the well on him. Brunson is now 8,200. And I mean, maybe it's not enough. He's just been absolutely crushing. Like, if Barrett sits again, like if Barrett plays, I really have no interest in Brunson at 8,200 for what it's worth. But I mean, for me on the Knicks, they're just playing these guys so many minutes, like Quickly and Randall and Brunson. They're just playing so many minutes.
And how about Brunson with a 40 burger the other night? 40 burger.
Like just absolutely crushing. So, Will, talk to me. What are your thoughts here on the Knicks side?
I mean, so Stevie, let me say this. I think mentally and visually, it feels awful to pay 8,200 for Jalen Brunson. Now, my caveat is RJ's absolutely going to have to sit out of this game, right? Like, if he doesn't sit, I'm not paying 8,200. If RJ sits yet again, I'm really close to pulling the trigger, considering this man has been pushing 50 fantasy points almost 3-4 games in a row now. Like 59, 45, 55, 38, 45. Like that's really good production. And we know Indiana's going to push the pace, not going to play much defense. So it's just a good spot. Stevie, last year this time, we were consistently getting Julius Randle around 8K, 7,900, 8,200. The year before, he was in more of the 9K range. This year, Stevie, and not just with RJ out, but just in general, 10-5 for Julius Randle. And guess what? You can still play him. I mean, the man's been putting up 60 burgers here recently, high 50s. Like, this is what we want from that type of player. I'm not afraid to pull the trigger. Stevie, listen to this. Listen how crazy this is. I think this is actually fairly remarkable. Julius Randle scored 57 fantasy points against Milwaukee, and he shot 9 for 29 from the field. Like, if he shoots 12 for 29, like just 6 more fantasy, he's now at 63, and he gets Indiana today. I don't think I can avoid getting Julius Randle shares at 10-5. Like, this is a cake spot for him. You have to play him, I think.
Just absolutely crushing. I mean, he's just absolutely crushing. We move on. We got the Bucks and the Hawks. 233 total in this one. Bucks a 2-point favorite. On the Atlanta side, Capella is out, and then on the Milwaukee side, Chris Middleton's out. So, I mean, 2 pretty full strength teams. We'll go Milwaukee first. Giannis just, I mean, he crushes, and then he doesn't. I mean, it correlates so much with like Drew Holiday. It's crazy, but it really does. I mean, this is a fantastic spot for him. And this is a spot that like he does have some really, really strong upside. It's just he doesn't do as much with Drew Holiday on the floor. And it for me, it's tougher to play him when Drew's active. And Drew, I think if I'm playing one of the two, I'm taking the $4,600 difference in playing Drew at $7,200.
I mean, bro, this is so we saw Drew kind of go off the other night too, right? And Stevie, he's one of those guys where, and so what I like was we saw 34 minutes, first of all. But when he's in the mid to upper 8Ks, I just try to avoid him. Like, this is too cheap, I think, for this matchup. This is a value play, I think, Stevie. Like, if he play, and this game should be competitive. Milwaukee's at Atlanta, they're on the road. I think he's a little bit too cheap. I think I'm more than willing to get in Drew Holiday shares. I don't hate Giannis as well in this spot at 11-8, but quite frankly, with Randle facing Indiana, like, I almost would just take the discount and play Randle. So I think Drew Holiday is my top play. I do think Brook Lopez is sneaky. Like, he's playing upper 30s minutes. Like, I think you get him in your line against Atlanta. But if I absolutely had to choose, gun to my head, I'd take Drew straight up.
All right, Atlanta's side, Trae Young, obviously 9,900. DeJounte Murray, 8,200. By the way, Trae Young, just anytime that he goes to LA and plays the Lakers, I'm just going to keep doing it and playing him. But what do you like here for Atlanta?
So I really wish we still had discounted John Collins. That was like,
it was. Listen,
God, it was
okay,
fun
let's not be greedy. We got it for like we like legitly got it for almost a week.
I know. I wish we could still get it, but realistically, like, Trae's at the top. DeJounte at 82 in this type of spot feels interesting to me. Now, I know we didn't see upside against the Lakers or the Clippers. 7 for 18, 8 for 18. What I'm most interested in, though, Stevie, is are the shot attempts continuing to stay steady? So we've seen here recently, like in the Brooklyn game, 26 shots, 17 against the Lakers, 20 against Golden State, 17 against Sacramento, 18 against the Lakers again, 18 against the Clippers. If the shot attempts are going to stay consistent, the upside is going to come. So he's going to have a nuke game here at some point. He's still picking up slight peripheral, like in his recent game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Game before that, 1 rebound, 6 assists, 6 and 4, 10 and 7, 7 and 9. Like, if we can see that and then the scoring pickup, and we can get him into the 20s in scoring, I think we've got a shot here. I like to play guys like this in competitive games. Feels like a good spot for DeJounte. Trey absolutely has more upside, don't get me wrong, but I'm willing to take the discount on Murray and play him there. And then I do think a sneaky guy here in this type of game is Bogdanovich. Now, I know he's 5,700 and it's going to feel kind of yucky, but Milwaukee's still going to keep giving up the 3 ball. Like, they've been doing this for 2 or 3 seasons now, I think. And, if Bogdanovich, what killed him in the Clippers, Steve, he put up 18 fantasy points, 4 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 of 7 from 3, 0 of 3 from 3 against the Lakers. But 3 of 7 against Sacramento, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. If the 3 ball, and I think Bogdanovich is a sneaky tournament play at 5,700.
It's always about the 3 ball. If it's fallen, it's always interesting. I mean, I definitely don't disagree with you. It's an interesting, like, just overall game. I mean, game-wise, it should be a really competitive game. These two teams, obviously, they know each other. They play each other. It was a 4th meeting this season. So, yeah, I mean, should be a really, really solid game. We got San Antonio heading to Memphis to take on the Grizzlies in this one. It's 238 total. Memphis is a 14.5 point favorite in this game. Like, no joke. Not projected to be a close one here. On the Memphis side, Brandon Clark is out. And on the San Antonio side, Bates Diop is questionable. Keldon Johnson is questionable. And Vassell is out. Will, talk to me. What do you like here for San Antonio?
Not much.
Yeah.
And it's mainly because these guys are out. Like, this game, it should not be competitive at all. Like, if San Antonio props come out, I think I'm just going to take unders, Stevie, and let it ride. And I think we'll be right spot on with it. Yep.
Memphis is just such a good defensive team that it's so hard to get excited about playing San Antonio, even shorthanded against this team. I mean, they allow, I think, like the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game is Memphis. So it's really hard for me to get excited about San Antonio, even shorthanded in this game. It's tough for me. So, I mean, struggling here, Will. I don't know if I'm playing anything from. I just don't.
I get it, bro. I super get it.
Josh Richardson maybe at 4,600, just because I think he doesn't come off the floor. Like, in a blowout, I don't know if he comes off the floor. Like, if you think this game's going to blow out, maybe Langford, listen, it's not a good spot. It's not a good spot. On the Memphis side, they should crush in this game. I mean, they should cruise in this game and have no trouble handling San Antonio. They're kind of priced up. I mean, for what it's worth, these two teams just played Monday, and it was a close game. So maybe it's a close game, but that was without Ja Morant. Ja Morant's not even on the injury report for this game. Like, huge difference. Huge difference. What do you like, if anything, here for Memphis?
I mean, Steve, I almost feel the same about Memphis. Like, is Ja really ceiling if he plays through? He could. Like, so it's like the tale of two cities, right? Like, the team is so bad, he gets whatever he wants. The whole first 3 quarters, he scores 30 and has 8 rebounds and 8 assists and a couple blocks, couple steals, and he gets there. But generally speaking, I think I just want to avoid this game. Like, everybody fully healthy. Bane back, Brooks back. I think I avoid it, Stevie. I think I just scratch this whole game off.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're playing like a Morant, and like I think with it, especially with him like coming back from like an injury, that like I mean he's gonna be off the court early if this game's not close. So like if you're playing Ja, I think you got to run it back with like a Podol. I think you got to run it back with someone that like on San Antonio that you think could be like the difference maker in this game. I mean that's just my opinion. So. All right, we got 2 games. Yeah, 2 games left. We got Phoenix at Denver. No total in this game. I mean, Phoenix on a back-to-back, and half their team was out last night. So we'll see. Denver, though, I mean, Denver is really close to fully healthy. Bones Island probable. Jeff Green is out. We'll go Phoenix here first. Like,
Yeah.
Will, what is Phoenix doing right now? I mean, they okay. Do you know they're beating Golden State by 12 right now? I don't know if you knew that or not, but in this 6 minutes ago in the second quarter, like Sarge and Lee and Washington are all having like really strong starts to the Golden State game, and I really needed that game to kind of not. I needed to go the other way. But yeah, like, what are your thoughts here on Phoenix?
I mean,
They
facing
beat
Denver.
Golden State without Booker, Ayton, and Paul, Johnson, and Payne, and Shamet. Like, what? Like,
No. Look. So here's my point on this, and I've always had this type of viewpoint when teams are very shorthanded and they're playing like what we consider the B team. And just hear me out. So the other team, Denver, is going to have Jokic. They're going to have all their starters, right? Well, at some point, all their starters are going to be off the floor. And they're going to be into their second unit and maybe possibly partial third unit, if that makes any sense. Well, guess what the other team is doing, Stevie? The starters for the B team are still out there playing. Yeah. And so they're and they just keep playing, and they never really get put away. Like, it's like two extremes, right? Like, the bench comes in, but the other starters are still in, and they're just playing because they're already loose and warm and ready. And it's maybe a little bit closer in competition. Now they start to hit some shots. They feel themselves. The coach looks up and goes, we're on the up 5. They sub. Maybe the other team subs 1 or 2 guys because they're only playing 7 or 8 guys. And they just stay in a rhythm, and they never get put out. And that's how I think one possibility of this game goes. But on a back-to-back after they've played, if these guys don't come back, I do expect Denver to give them a good old-fashioned butt kicking for what it's worth. But if they're cheap enough, you still have to consider it. That's my stance.
One of the hardest back-to-backs in the NBA, and we talk about this all the time, is going into Denver. Going into Utah, going into Denver is just for like physical wise is just a really hard back-to-back. So for me on the Phoenix side, if everyone's out again, I'm going to play Washington. I'm going to play Sarge again. I'll take some shots on. I mean, I'll probably take some shots on like Damian Lee again, and I'll probably take some shots on like Bismack Biyombo again. So, I mean,
the Biz man. I mean, he's 3K. He's literally 3K. Like,
my only concern with like Biyombo is like he's been in and out of the lineup with like the knee and stuff, where maybe he sits the second end of a back-to-back as well, and you take a shot on like Lindahl at 3,400. So, I mean, if these guys are all out, Phoenix is just going to need these guys to play minutes. If Phoenix beats or Golden State, like they're currently up by like 17, trying to close out the second quarter. Like, if Phoenix beats Washington or Golden State, man, I did it twice. Phoenix beats Golden State, I think we could definitely see like Booker, Paul, Ayton, these guys out again in this one. Give those guys an extra day.
Here's what I will say, though, Stevie. This better not happen. Like, this better not happen.
Like, at the end of the day, like, if you're Phoenix, you were like, hey, if we can win one of these 2, right? and get these guys a couple extra days. Like, if they win the first one, you're like, hey, let's give these guys let's get these guys healthy. So who knows?
Yeah.
But Denver side, I mean, if this game stays remotely close, Jokic is going to have a field day in this game. That's all I got. That's all I got from Denver.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I got.
I mean, look, that it's like it's kind of the same scenario with Memphis. Like, how far does this game go if Denver really pops off on them? Like, it's just if it could get out of hand early, and if so, I don't want to play Jokic at 11-6, knowing. Because so here's the thing I think that's different about Jokic, and let's maybe say, I don't know, a LeBron or let's see, Harden, Embiid. Like, if the other team is down a whole bunch of players, like Jokic will be just fine catching the ball and getting like 15 assists this game and have like a mini triple-double, like 10, 10, and 10. You get what I'm saying? Like, he won't have to do much. This team can score enough points without him having to even break a sweat, and he'll still be involved and put up good numbers, but he'll score like 3 fantasy points rather than like 60. And that's my fear with Jokic. I feel like I got to fade this spot too. I think the next game we're going to love it for what it's worth.
Let's get to it. Houston at Sacramento, fantasy-wise, probably the best game on the slate. 240 total. Kings a 9-point favorite in this one. I mean, Sacramento health-wise, they're good to go. Houston health-wise, they're good to go. This just seems weird. Knocking on wood for everybody. You hardly ever see like nobody on the injury report on either side of this, like on either side of a game night before, but full strength teams, really high scoring game, really fast paced game. Definitely projects as the fastest paced game on the slate. Houston is like 18th in pace, and Sacramento is like 4th. Defensively, 2 of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. Will, we have to like this game. Talk to me here about Houston.
Yeah, we're stacking this thing up higher than a can of Pringles. I love this. I love this spot. De'Aaron Fox, 8,900. I'm in. Kevin Porter Jr., 7,800. I'm in. And I know I'm talking about like the game in general, so I'm sorry about that. But this whole game, Stevie, just breeds fantasy points, and so I think you just stack it up in the right places. Now, I still don't want to sacrifice pieces of the Indiana-New York game. Like, I still like that one as well. If we can find a way to kind of bridge the gap, I think that would be good. We probably won't be able to do it with all the stars. Like, you wouldn't be able to get in Sabonis, Randall, and Brunson. Like, I don't think you can pull that off. Like, it's going to eat up too much salary. But if you squeeze a Kevin Porter Jr. and then he has an upside game, you put in, a Kevin Huerter or Malik Monk, some of the secondary pieces from Sacramento with Houston, I think that's how you get it done. Overall with Houston, Jabari Smith, he goes in. I like him at 500. Kevin Porter, once again, I think he's my top play from the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I like this game. Looking at like the Houston side, like where I like to attack like Sacramento is just kind of like with wing players, and I feel like that is potentially like it just kind of goes in between like Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. So I think one of Kevin Porter Jr. or Jalen Green have a really good game here. In large field tournaments, don't call me crazy. You can call me crazy. That's fine. But in large field tournaments, I will have some exposure to KJ Martin on this slate as well. Probably 20 to 25 minutes most nights. But this is the perfect type of matchup for him. This team is so bad against wings that can shoot. So KJ Martin, large field tournaments. Just write that one down. I already have it written down for the morning grind game, so I figured I'd mention it real quick.
There it is.
Sacramento side of this game, listen, the Houston Rockets are atrocious against point guards. And it's because they don't have a true point guard. Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. are not true point guards. And point guards have just absolutely shredded this team this season. I think they allow 4 more fantasy points than the second highest in the NBA against point guards. De'Aaron Fox is a top play on this slate, and we're getting him for under 9K compared to 10-5, 11-5 type of play. De'Aaron Fox could go for 60 plus in this game. One of my favorite plays on the slate is De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I'm in. Love De'Aaron Fox. Definitely on board. I think it's a really, really, really good play. This whole game, once again, Fox, Malik 4,400. I think I'm in on him, especially if he gets 25 minutes, Steve, which I think he could get in this game. Kevin Huerter is starting to pick it back up. We've seen up some 3-point games here recently. So he's a guy that I think you get involved with. I think my odd man out here might be Harrison Barnes, maybe. But I still think you consider him in your bills where you have maybe 150 lineups. I still think you want to get him in. And I think we saw Keegan Murray have a fairly nice game here the other night for the price, 27 fantasy points. And he's been mid-20s in most of these games recently. At 4,400 against Houston, sign me up. I think he's kind of a bridge for this game, a slightly cheaper piece to get in for a really high upside total.
All right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we will get out of here. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday night if you're listening to it, and hope everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday morning if you're listening to it in the morning. Let's get into it. We get started. Favorite play under 5K to go 7X. Who's your cheap guy that you like today to have a good game?
I'm going to go... I'm actually going to the last game, man. Give me Malik Monk at 4,400 at the smash spot.
I like that. Listen, there's some injury news here. If we knew exactly what injury news is going to look like, there's a lot of guys that I like, but I wrote down Dario Saric, just kind of thinking that Phoenix might sit guys again. So that's who I wrote down. So we'll go with it. Over 8K to go under 5X. Who is your bust today?
I actually think we got a fair amount of guys. I'm doing this because I think this game gets out of hand, Stevie. Give me Ja Morant at 10-3.
All right. I mean, if it stays close, you're probably wrong, and I think you know that. I'm going to go Sabonis. I could see Sabonis having a fantastic game against Houston, but I really, really, really think it's going to be De'Aaron Fox today. I think it's De'Aaron Fox day. So I'm going to go Sabonis. Favorite 6X play, Will? Who do you got today?
This was a tough one for me, but I'm going back to a guy that we talked about earlier, and I'm going to side with all these guys being out. Give me Kyle Kuzma at 8,500.
I like that one. I mean, they're very careful with Porzingis usually, so I don't hate that. I'm going to go De'Aaron Fox. Listen, I'm all aboard. You're going to see him again in the part of this game here in a minute, but yeah, I like De'Aaron Fox a lot today, so he's my guy. Let's get weird. GPP play of the day. Who do you got today, Will?
I'm similar situation. I think Jalen Brunson is expensive enough that people are going to fade him today. He gets a matchup with Indiana. All aboard the Jalen Brunson train.
I like it. I'm going to go KJ Martin. I already kind of said it when we were just talking about him. Perfect type of spot, right? Just a perfect type of spot. Not going to have any ownership here on an 8-game slate. So I'm going to go KJ Martin. Could easily not work out. So again, that's why we call this a GPP play. Any bets standing out to you here night before?
I was trying to get ahead of that, Stevie, because I knew you were probably going to ask me. And if I had to roll with one right now, I tell you what, I'm going back to the well on this. Give me CJ McCollum under 4.5 rebounds. He's hit it the past 2 games, but we've had some weird things, Stevie. And so for those of you that don't know, and I was tracking it obviously because I invested in that prop, but CJ had 4 rebounds in the first half, 1 rebound in the second half. Prior to these 2 upside games, he's generally anywhere from 1 to 3 rebounds, 4 at the most. And it's Boston, who's going to have some trees out there rebounding the ball, Horford, Williams, Tatum in his own right. Jaylen Brown has been rebounding more this year. Give me McCollum under 4.5.
All right, my 2 for 2 sleeper pick for today. Yesterday, gosh, I mean, we got the Siakam points. Man, I really thought we were going to cruise with Jared Allen. Didn't happen. We'll get it back today. I'm going to go Therese Halliburton over 40.7 fantasy points, and I'm going to go De'Aaron Fox over 40.4 fantasy points. So a couple fantasy props over there on Sleeper today. It's in the Grinders squad chat on Sleeper right now. If you haven't signed up on Sleeper, promo code Grinders, 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Love what they do, helping us out here, sponsoring the podcast. So if you enjoy the podcast, they're one of the reasons why we get to, record it each and every day. So, Will, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Negative, my good sir. I can't wait to hang out with you.
That's going to wrap it up here for Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow talking some football. We got some playoffs to talk about, so we're going to talk some football tomorrow. Have a fantastic Wednesday. We'll see you again tomorrow.